The Trouble with Angels, podcast script, Chapter 11, Season 2, Episode 2, Business Casual, Armageddon, by Glory Fink. A Holiday Inn Express, beige carpet, bulk cinnamon rolls approved by committee, and 3 archangels walking in like family emergency. There's a forged apocalypse order in play, rooting clean, too clean. And then Azazel says, very calmly, they're trying to light the house on fire to see if Dad comes home. This is Chapter 11 of The Trouble with Angels, Business Casual Armageddon. If you want to keep binge reading Bob and Hannah's adventure right now, start at Chapter 1, link in show notes, and the season hub is also linked in the show notes. And if you know someone who loves angel family politics, divine bureaucracy weaponized like HR policy, the end of the world delivered in business casual, and a Holiday Inn Express becoming a cosmic incident report, share this episode with them. Previously, on The Trouble with Angels, Hannah woke up in your afterlife, furious, grieving, and not interested in the orientation packet. Bob, cigarette, fedora, and exhausted competence, revealed the real problem. God is missing, and creation is glitching. Michael and Gabriel got an extinction order with no signature and no timeline, and it smelled wrong. In Maui, the air got too perfect, the edges started peeling, and Bob started buying time. Business Casual Armageddon by Glory Fink. Bob told me this part later. Not because he was there, he wasn't. Bob isn't everywhere all the time. He shows up to the systems, and there's a difference. Scenes are messy, systems are where the mess goes to hide. Also, there's very little that Bob hasn't eventually observed. That's not a boast, it's just what happens when you're the person in charge of normal rounds in a universe where normal is a word everyone uses like a prayer because it keeps them from screaming. The archangels were used to Bob visiting, used to him checking in like the world's most exhausted cousin, stopping by the kitchen doorway to ask who ate the last of the cosmic leftovers. Used to the way he'd stand there, coat smelling faintly of dust and duty, and say things like, Michael, Gabriel was Earthside earlier. Gabriel, Azazel's still on the ground. Everybody's upright. Nobody's currently on fire. Bob wasn't corporate. Bob was family lubricant, the thing that kept the moving parts from grinding to a stop. So when Bob told me about the Holiday Inn Express, it wasn't a story he heard like gossip. It was an incident he had reconstructed, stitched together from nanos, rat reports, and what the archangels later told the family out loud and laid over patterns he already knew by heart. Because Bob had watched Azazel run that seminar before. Not in disguise, not pretending to be human, just Bob. Checking in, listening, taking the temperature of the world the way you test bathwater with your wrists so you don't burn someone you love. At the time, I hadn't met Azazel yet. I only knew his name the way you know the name of a storm you haven't seen. Bob spoke about Azazel with affectionate respect, mild dread, and the kind of trust you only give to someone that never lies about the damage they can do. Later, I realized something else. This was one of the first times I understood that archangels weren't departments. They were kin. Anyway, it started, according to Bob's best reconstruction, at a Holiday Inn Express. Bob described the Holiday Inn Express like a place designed to make you forget your own creativity. Sun-bleached exterior, a parking lot full of mid-sized rental cars lined up like obedient thoughts, luggage carts parked in corners like docile metal animals, the constant hum of HVAC systems working overtime to keep the air neutral, compliant, and just barely scented like cinnamon rolls. Not handmade cinnamon rolls, no. Bulk industrial cinnamon rolls. Cinnamon rolls that have been approved by a committee. He emphasized how wrong it felt that something cosmic was unfolding somewhere that served breakfast in vats. It wasn't evil, Bob told me. It was worse. It was bland, with a mission statement. He didn't say that with contempt. Bob doesn't despise human places. He sounded almost protective, like he was annoyed on behalf of the humans who thought they were safe inside normalcy, like the building had made a promise it couldn't keep. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, because Bob's afterthoughts are usually the part that matters. Gabriel and Michael arrived together. Not together like co-workers carpooling. Together like siblings who decided, without saying it, that neither of them should be alone right now. They arrived in the El Dorado. The El Dorado they borrowed from Jesus. Bob used air quotes when he said borrowed. Like the word itself was an ethical compromise he didn't have time to litigate. If you've never seen an ancient car used as a vehicle for cosmic beings, let me save you the trouble. It looks exactly as ridiculous as it sounds, and it somehow still carries authority. The El Dorado glided into the parking lot like a relic of style that had gotten tired of being symbolic and decided to become useful. Gabriel was in the passenger seat, stiff with tension, vibrating like a perfection rule in a bad font environment. Michael drove with the calm, furious focus of someone piloting a legal argument through traffic. And the car stood out among the beige sedans and family SUVs, which was its own kind of commentary on bland corporate homogeny. Bob told me that's what made it feel like generals amassing their troops before anyone said a word. Not the weapons, the fact that the family had started traveling together. They headed in. Bob's network caught the lobby scene in fragments. Camera angles, ambient nano readings, rat commentary. The desk clerk greeted them. They walked in together, shoulder to shoulder, in that way archangels do when they don't want to announce they're concerned. "Hello," Michael said. "We're here for the seminar." Gabriel hovered half a step behind, eyes already catching everything the building wanted people to ignore. The crooked sign, the too cheerful carpet pattern, the way the air smelled like sweetness trying to cover exhaustion. Bob said the clerk's brain did what human brains always do. It picked a story that preserved normalcy. Conference attendees, probably. Or consultants, or that intense couple from the leadership retreat. The archangels are androgynous and slightly uncannily humanoid. Humans translate them through whatever gender lens keeps their nervous system from shorting out. Bob said you could watch the clerk's eyes settle on something, haircut, suit line, posture, and decide on the pronoun he for Michael because it made the moment easier. But even when Michael plays he, him, human-friendly, the uncanny still leaks at the edges, not as a threat, as a truth. And Gabriel's presence softened for a second when they noticed a parent soothing a child by the breakfast area. Not sentimentality, recognition. The divine inside the mundane. The kind of tenderness that keeps a place like this from being only beige. They walked the corridor. The closer they got to conference room B, the more the readings changed. Not fear exactly, not heat, not cold, just that sensation of reality holding its breath. Bob said the nanos caught something else on the way, something almost absurdly domestic. A small spike of tension from Gabriel, then a steadier line from Michael, like Michael had said something low, familiar, and grounding, the way siblings speak when the world is shifting under their feet. Not poetry, not comfort, just a reminder that you are not alone. It wasn't dramatic. It was older than drama. It was, "I'm here, keep walking." Then the audio picked up Azazel mid-sentence through the door. The conference room was filled with folding chairs, sad industrial pastries, and a projector hum that sounded like resignation. Bob didn't see with his eyes in that exact moment, but he had observed Azazel's seminar plenty of times before. And he pulled the Holiday Inn's audio later because humans will install microphones in anything if it improves their ability to charge a conference package fee. Azazel came through the speakers like someone earth-worn and bluntly competent. Charismatic, yes, but not shiny. He sounded like a person who had stopped pretending systems were clean and had decided to work with it anyway. The content was satirical on the surface. Corporate buzzwords, PowerPoint rhythm, stakeholders, operational efficiencies, decolonizing frameworks, the kind of language that makes the human soul want to leave its body and go start a garden. But the ethic underneath was clear. Reduce harm, increase safety, stop humans from hurting humans. Azazel wasn't selling vice. He was doing triage. Teaching people who considered themselves business owners how to stop turning their power into a weapon. Teaching people how to build safeguards. Teaching them how to recognize coercion. Teaching them that consent is not a mood, it's a structure. And when Michael listened, because yes, Michael listened, he wasn't offended. Michael was curious about the architecture, where power sits, how it moves, how you prevent it from becoming predatory. Gabriel recognized the compassion immediately. Not because Gabriel approved of everything humans did with desire. Gabriel has opinions the way thunderstorms have opinions. But because Gabriel knew Azazel, knew the kind of work Azazel chose, knew that if Azazel was standing in a hotel conference room, making corporate jokes to keep humans engaged, it was because this was one of the places suffering was happening. Azazel used the language humans would listen to. That was the point. Bob told me that's why the Archangels didn't roll their eyes at the absurdity of the format. They didn't have to understand every nuance. They trusted each other's moral compass like a shared trait. In the Holiday Inn recording, you can hear the moment the room shifts, not because Azazel notices Michael and Gabriel. He'd know their footsteps anywhere, but because something else enters with them. A wrongness, a pressure, a paper command containing an absence of love. Azazel's cadence changes half a degree, like he's finishing a sentence he's been saving for exactly this kind of day. And if you can't tell the difference between consent and compliance, Azazel said, smooth as corporate carpet, then you are not running a business. You are running a shame-generating factory. Someone coughed. Someone shifted in their chair. Someone nodded slowly like they'd just been handed the first honest sentence of the week. Azazel clicked to the next slide. And then he said, bright and casual, we're going to take a short break. And he stepped down from the podium like the room belonged to him, which, in a way, it did. He walked toward the door, not surprised, not startled, just ready. Because family has a rhythm. And when your siblings show up mid-seminar, it means either someone's dying or someone's trying to set the universe on fire. Sometimes both. They pulled Azazel aside by the ice machine and the vending machines. That detail came from the building audio, from Nanos, and because the universe has a sense of humor, from a rat named Sneakers, who later described the ice machine as the shiny hot box that makes the cold water rocks. Bob told me the corridor smelled like stale carpet, old vacuum exhaust, and the hollow promise of free breakfast. Gabriel produced the apocalypse order. Bob didn't have the paper then. He got it later through channels he didn't explain because Bob doesn't explain what isn't important. But he knew, even from the early descriptions, that the paper was wrong. Gabriel said it plainly. This paper is mistaken. Not illegitimate, not unauthorized, mistaken in the deeper sense. Wrong like a prayer that tastes like revenge. There's no essence of the Lord about it, Michael said, voice tight. No love. Michael didn't argue. Michael's jaw tightened. Michael named the theory with the clean, horrifying clarity of someone who understands bureaucracy as a weapon. Someone, Michael said, a misguided personnel or even a group, someone who thinks that perhaps this apocalypse will summon God back to put the universe back to order. Azazel's reaction was immediate, not panic, not fury, disgust at the theology. Disbelief that sharpened into cold focus. Azazel took the paper from Gabriel and stared at it like it had insulted his ordinance. And then he looked up. And the line, Bob repeated to me like it burned his mouth. Azazel said it without drama, without theatrics, because family doesn't need to perform for each other. They're trying to light the house on fire, Azazel said, voice low and incredulous, to see if Dad comes home. Michael confirmed that line later with the same grim precision, like he hated how accurate it was. Gabriel flinched, not at the metaphor, but at the emotional truth under it, because yes, that was exactly what it was. Panic within faith, armed with procedure. A summoning tantrum disguised as policy. A belief spiral with access to power. Azazel's disbelief wasn't caused by fear of a lack of further purpose. It was heartbreak wearing armor. It was the stern resolution of someone who had spent too long preventing humans from being used as kindling. Who's pushing this? Azazel asked. Michael shook his head once. We don't know yet, but it's routing clean. Too clean. Like someone has access to channels they shouldn't. Gabriel's expression tightened at that, like a splinter had found the soft spot between responsibility and dread. Azazel handed the paper back like it was forbidden. Then he leaned against the wall and stared at the ceiling tiles for one long second, like he was trying to summon all his strength in order to remain calm. I stayed Earthside, Azazel said, because humans need developmental opportunities. Michael just nodded. That was the thing about their trust. Even when they hadn't seen each other in ages, their respect was baseline, automatic, ancient. And because the groundwork needs doing, Azazel added. He gestured vaguely toward the conference room. Growth happens in lived reality, not in memos. Gabriel's shoulders softened, just a fraction. Michael's expression shifted into something like understanding, reluctant but real. They argued then, not viciously, not cruelly, like siblings. Michael questioned logistics, escalation pathways, how the forged order could be moving. Michael spoke like a lawyer because Michael is a lawyer in the way ancient beings become archetypes through repetition. Gabriel bristled at the idea that procedure could solve something rooted in panic and longing. Gabriel spoke like a caretaker who knows rules are only as good as the hearts enforcing them. Azazel mocked heaven's obsession with cleanliness, while admitting bluntly that certain structures do prevent power from turning feral. And under it all was that unspoken ease. They didn't have to posture. They didn't have to convince each other that they were righteous. They trusted each other to be doing the Lord's work. They had known each other for millions of years, long enough that trust wasn't a decision, it was core. Then Gabriel went still. When Gabriel goes still like that, it isn't a pause. It's a decision arriving. We are unlikely to solve this as individuals, Gabriel said quietly. Michael nodded once, like a judge nodding when the witness finally says the obvious thing. Together, Michael said. We're better together. Wiser, stronger, more of the divine coalescing together. Azazel didn't hesitate. He agreed immediately. Because Azazel knows what belief spirals do. Belief spirals don't need logic. Belief spirals need momentum. And if someone had strapped momentum to forged authority, then the only answer wasn't a memo. It was family. We call the family, Gabriel said. Michael's gaze sharpened. We convene all of the family. Azazel pushed off the wall, already moving in his mind. I don't suppose you two already have a meeting place and time in mind. Michael shook his head, but Gabriel said, let's leave that up to Bob. Bob knows where everything is, so Bob will know the safest location in the universe. Because they were kin, yes, but they were also ancient. And ancient beings learn the hard way that walls can have ears in a universe where paperwork has teeth. But the intent was unmistakable. The moment they said it, the air changed. Not with fear, with purpose. Bob told me there was one more thing, a small thing. The kind of small thing you ignore until it becomes the reason you're alive later. They were still there, ice machine humming, vending machine glowing, when a different conference room opened a crack. A human woman appeared who smelled of tea roses and in essence that the paper Gabriel was still holding lacked. Not the desk clerk, not the coffee attendant, someone else. She looked startled, like she'd stepped through the wrong slice of reality by mistake. Oops, she said, polite, soft as a habit. Wrong door. Then she pulled that door closed again. The three archangels all looked at each other and then back at the now closed conference door. Azazel paused for a moment, then walked over to the closed door and opened it, but the entire conference room A was entirely empty. She was just gone. Like reality edited around her. Michael and Gabriel exchanged a look that said, that should not be possible. Azazel paused, just a beat. Tiny, thoughtful. He filed it away. Bob said that the footage didn't show her entering. She was simply there, then gone. And the nanas registered the absence like a held breath suddenly released. When Bob told me this part, he didn't say her name. He didn't know her name then. But I remembered Agnes. I remembered the way she moved like a question mark that had learned to wear shoes. The way the world seemed to rearrange itself around her without permission. Bob didn't say any of that. He just said, that happened. And I knew he was correct. Michael remarked, well, this must be important. The universe only interrupts important matters. Azazel and Gabriel nodded in knowing agreement. Azazel asked, where are you two headed next? Gabriel looked to Michael, and Michael said, "There's a family reunion of the Ways and Means near Chicago. I figured we'd drive along the Mississippi River in case we're able to run into any other members of the family, and then attend that event, visit with some of our descendants, and then go from there." Azazel nodded and then replied, "All right, I'm going to finish this seminar and then clear my schedule, and I'll go visit Brachial at his dojo. The last I heard, Raphael was up in the Yukon or helping physicians cross borders or some mishigas like that. I'll see what I can do. Message me when you're ready to meet." Gabriel nodded once. Michael's eyes went distant, already building a plan with that terrifying lawyer brain. When Bob finished telling me, he looked at me like he was checking my face for fractures, as if to say, "Now you know what's coming." As if to warn me gently, when the family has to convene, it's because someone is trying to tear the house apart. Next time on The Trouble with Angels, babes, we're going to the movies. Not the normal kind where you sneak in candy and pretend your life is fine for 2 hours. The other kind. The kind where the lobby feels too quiet, the air tastes like ozone and paperwork, and the previews are less summer blockbuster and more prophecy with surround sound. Bob has an errand. Hannah has questions. The universe has that thin, shimmering look at the edges like it's one good sob away from tearing. And tonight's feature presentation, a weather goddess who doesn't do small talk, doesn't do mercy on demand, and definitely doesn't care if you're emotionally prepared. 2 tickets, 1 dark theater, a forecast that isn't about rain, and yes, light snacks will be served during Judgment Day. You've been listening to The Trouble with Angels by Glory Fink. If this episode poked at something tender, if your brain feels loud or your heart feels raw, please be extra gentle with yourself today. You deserve support that's real, not just beige with a mission statement. If you're in the US or Canada, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the UK and ROI, Samaritans are available at 116-123. In Australia, Lifeline is 131114. If you're in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number. And if you want to help this story keep finding its people, you can tap the heart button. Engagement is magic. Leave a comment. Bob will file it in triplicate. Michael will cite precedent. And Azazel will grade it like a seminar worksheet. Share this episode with a friend who loves celestial family drama, divine workplace comedy, and apocalypse memos that should have died in HR. You can also toss a coin in the coffee fund. Divine contributions always welcome. On Ko-fi, Venmo, and Cash App. Link in show notes. You can also check out our season hub and chapters, link in show notes, and Coffee Bunny Crafters Cafe with Cozy Chaos and behind the scenes, link in show notes. And you can find me, Glory Fink, as @GloryWritesTheBlues on social media. Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. And remember, if the paperwork feels too clean, check for teeth. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in Chapter 12. Goodbye.